What if I told you there's a machine that outran thousands of missiles, dodged radar like it was a myth, and shattered records that still stand unchallenged? It tore across the sky faster than a speeding bullet, climbed so high pilots could see the curve of the Earth, and became so legendary that enemy forces threw everything at it, yet never brought it down. Here's the real twist. This marvel wasn't defeated by combat or brought down by rivals. The truth? Its story ends not in fire, but in a boardroom, introducing the greatest spy jet ever built, the SR-71 Blackbird. It didn't lose a war, it lost a decision. Let's rewind. Cold War, icy silence, spies everywhere, and total paranoia. America needed to know everything. Where the bombs were, who was moving missiles, which base was suddenly a hotspot. The solution? Fly higher and faster than anyone ever dreamed. Enter the U-2 spy plane.
Цель. Подтверждаю.
Пелинг 30. Скорость растет.
Дерзать цель. Всем постам повышенная готовность.
Until a Soviet missile shot one out of the sky and paraded its pilot on global TV. Game changed. That's when Kelly Johnson and the secret Skunk Works team got the craziest assignment in aviation history. Build a jet that could sneak into enemy territory, take crystal clear photos, and escape before anyone could say, incoming. How bold. They built it almost entirely from titanium, a rare metal America had to secretly buy from the Soviet Union themselves. The engine? It didn't just survive at 2,000 plus miles per hour. It was designed to run hot enough to melt most metals. Every piece was radical. Every bolt experimental. At Mach 3 and 85,000 feet, the Blackbird became the only plane that leaked fuel on purpose on the runway, because it would seal itself tight when it got hot in flight. Quick question. How wild is that? A plane so advanced it dripped fuel while parked? Drop your answer below if you trust flying this beast. This jet was more UFO than airplane. When pilots fired it up, they didn't just climb, they left Earth as most people know it. Mach 3.2 meant you could cross the US coast to coast in just over an hour. Pilots wore pressure suits because at 85,000 feet, the sky fades black and the curve of the Earth winks at you. Another mind-blowing fact, an SR-71 set the absolute speed record, 2,193 miles per hour. That's New York to London in under 2 hours. Pilots like Brian Schull told stories of turning up the heat to outrun not just missiles, but entire nations' air defenses. Fun fact, during one training run, a Blackbird crossed 3 states in just 9 minutes. Not even air traffic controllers could keep up. And if a missile came, no dogfighting, no fancy maneuvers. Pilots just pushed forward and the Blackbird left danger in the dust. It was a phantom. Planes tried to intercept it, missiles chased it, and everyone failed. Over 4,000 attempts, 0 hits. That's more than luck. That's engineering magic. But speed comes with a monster appetite. Money, manpower, and patience. Each Blackbird flight cost upwards of $85,000 per hour. Not dollars per day, per hour. Why? Because it needed rare fuel. JP-7, almost impossible to ignite. Dedicated tankers, massive ground crews, and a routine that made maintenance teams sweat. The heat expansion made some panels fit only when the jet was blazing hot. Mechanics joked, if you touched it with a greasy hand, that print would bake on at Mach 3. Every takeoff required meticulous prep, synchronized tanker launches, global logistics, and cold nerves. Pilots weren't just airmen, they were astronauts with nerves of steel. Interesting fact, the SR-71 was so secret that International Air Traffic Control didn't even have a proper code for it. Controllers squinted at radar screens showing a blip, moving 3 times faster than any legal flight plan. Question: would you drain your defense budget for one invincible, unstoppable tool? or spread the cash out for more planes, more missions. That's the debate that ended the Blackbird's rule. Suddenly, tech caught up. Satellites started circling the planet, snapping images without ever risking a pilot's life or burning 1 ounce of fuel. Satellites were tireless, always watching, and didn't need a 3-hour prep for every mission. The Pentagon started whispering, why pay millions for snapshots when satellites can watch all day? But here's the secret. Satellites can't improvise. They move in set orbits. Russia or China knew exactly when they'd pass overhead. If you wanted surprise, if you wanted real reaction time, you still needed a living, breathing pilot and a Blackbird. Want a shocker? The SR-71 flew wild sorties over trouble zones like North Korea, the Middle East, and even over Libya. In one famous incident, a Blackbird outpaced 2 missiles over Libya, then sent a message home. Both missiles detonated behind us, not even close. Some pilots called it riding the lightning. Stat: not a single SR-71 was ever brought down. Not by a Soviet, not by a MiG, not by an accident in enemy airspace. They were that good, ask anyone who flew them. If you're into pilot stories, check out Brian Schul's Wild Tales. He once asked ATC to give a ground speed check. The reply, you're showing 2,242 knots. That's over 2,500 miles per hour. And they were still accelerating. If you love speed, secrets, and silent victories, you're not alone. Hit subscribe and drop your favorite fact so far in the comments. Here's where it all turns. Why would anyone retire the world's fastest, untouchable spy plane? The answer, politics and price tags. By the late 1980s, new generations in the Pentagon and Congress were looking for savings, obsessed with the shiny promise of satellites and stealth bombers. The push to cut costs turned into a storm. Some called it progress. Others called it madness. Who actually pulled the plug? Officially, the U.S. Air Force recommended retiring the SR-71, but it was Congress and Department of Defense officials, with strong support from budget hawks, who made it stick. On paper, satellites seemed to offer round-the-clock surveillance at a fraction of the cost, and the SR-71's mind-blowing price per hour looked impossible to justify. But here's the kicker. Every time Congress brought the Blackbird back for a special mission, think Gulf War hotspots or North Korean surprises, it ran circles around satellites, delivering critical photos and intel before the digital eyes could even refocus. The debates in Washington got heated. Intelligence agencies and many pilots wanted to keep the Blackbird flying, arguing that you can't replace speed, unpredictability, or the shock value of a jet appearing unannounced above your secret airbase. The Air Force brass, meanwhile, wanted new toys and less logistical hassle. The budget tighteners won, and in 1990, the legendary fleet was grounded. Congress revived it briefly in the mid-90s, but by 1998, the curtain came down for the last time. Bad decision or good? That's the fun part. Ask a room full of aviation fans and you'll spark an argument. Some experts still say ditching the SR-71 was a strategic blunder, sacrificing an unmatched edge in global reconnaissance. Others say tech moved on. So what really happened after the last flight? Some believe a handful of SR-71s may have continued flying as secret black ops birds. Rumors and whispers chase the Blackbird to this day. No hard proof, but if any plane ever deserved a secret encore, it's this one. And what about its effect? Military planners suddenly lost the fastest pair of eyes in the sky. Some missions had to wait for satellites, with all the predictability and gaps that brought. Was America less safe? Did rivals breathe a little easier, knowing the Blackbird was grounded? Here's a question to end the suspense. Do you think scrapping the SR-71 was the right move? Or did we ground a legend too soon? Drop your take below, and if you've heard a Blackbird still lives somewhere out there, we want your story. So, what happened? The Blackbird didn't lose a war, it lost a budget meeting, but its legend lives on. Walk under its wings at a museum and you'll feel the echo of a machine that outran every threat thrown at it. And here's one more fun stunner. No jet since has broken its records, not one. And if military insiders are to be believed, the Blackbird still holds secrets we haven't even guessed at. So tell me, if you could take one ride in history's fastest jet, would you? And do you think we'll ever see anything like the Blackbird soar again? If this story made you feel a burst of adrenaline, like, share, and join the Elevon crew for more wild tales from the skies. Until next time, keep your eyes up, your questions coming, and never doubt that the impossible is just an engine start away.